I'm not just generally happy. If I'm generally anything, I guess I'm generally miserable.
She was the dazzling blonde bombshell who lit up Hollywood's golden screens, the woman every man wanted and every woman envied. But behind the diamonds, the red lips, and that unforgettable smile was a fragile soul hiding in plain sight. Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a star, she was a mystery, one that Hollywood helped create and then just as quickly destroyed. Her story is filled with broken promises, haunting secrets, and a death that remains one of the most debated tragedies in entertainment history. How did a girl named Norma Jeane become the world's most famous woman? And why did her light fade so soon? Long before she became Marilyn Monroe, she was Norma Jeane, a little girl born into chaos. Her mother, Gladys, struggled with schizophrenia, and Norma Jeane never even knew who her father was. That absence haunted her, leaving her with a deep sense of abandonment that never went away. When Gladys suffered a breakdown, young Norma Jeane was thrust into the foster system, shuffled from house to house, where she endured neglect and even abuse. She became painfully shy, retreating into herself as a way to survive. At just 16, desperate to escape the uncertainty of foster life, she married a sailor and stepped into adulthood far too soon. Yet, even in those bleak years, Hollywood's shadow was never far away. Norma Jeane was living in the very city where dreams were made and broken. But at the time, she was just a girl fighting to hold on to her own identity. Little did anyone know the fragile teen would one day become the most famous woman in the world. Norma Jeane's transformation into Marilyn Monroe began almost by accident. During World War II, while working at a munitions factory, a photographer named David Conover spotted her and snapped a few photos for a morale-boosting campaign. The camera adored her. Those pictures opened doors to modeling agencies, and soon Norma Jeane was reinventing herself, bleaching her hair a radiant blonde and stepping into the spotlight with a brand new name. Marilyn came from Broadway star Marilyn Miller, while Monroe was borrowed from her mother's maiden name. It was a name designed to shine, even as it carried pieces of her past. By 1946, she had signed with 20th Century Fox, though success didn't come overnight. For months, she lingered in the shadows, studying acting, waiting for her chance. When it finally came, the studios began molding her into their vision of the perfect starlet. Her real self was slowly buried beneath layers of glamour, mystery, and a carefully crafted image. The world saw Marilyn Monroe, but Norma Jeane was already slipping further away. By the early 1950s, Marilyn Monroe was no longer waiting in the wings. She was front and center. Her breakout role in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes launched her into superstardom, cementing her as Hollywood's ultimate blonde bombshell. The world couldn't get enough of her playful charm and dazzling presence. But behind the curtain, Marilyn was fighting a losing battle with her own image. Studio executives typecast her in roles that emphasized beauty over depth, pushing the dumb blonde persona until the public began to believe it was real. Yet Marilyn was far from shallow. She owned a personal library of hundreds of books, studied literature, and worked tirelessly on her craft. She longed for roles that showed her intelligence and emotional depth. At the same time, she used her fame to help others, famously standing up for Ella Fitzgerald by securing her a spot at a club that had refused her because of race. Marilyn was adored by millions, but she was also trapped in an image that left her feeling unseen. If Marilyn's career was dazzling, her love life was a storm. In 1954, she married baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. To the outside world, it was a fairy tale. America's favorite athlete with Hollywood's golden girl. But behind closed doors, tensions grew. DiMaggio wanted a traditional wife, while Marilyn belonged to the spotlight. Their marriage lasted only 9 months, though Joe's devotion to her would endure for the rest of his life. A few years later, she wed playwright Arthur Miller, hoping for stability and intellectual partnership. At first, she believed she'd finally found a soulmate, but even that relationship fractured under the weight of her insecurities and Miller's growing frustrations. He even penned writings that Marilyn felt exposed her deepest wounds. Every marriage left her feeling more abandoned than before. Yet, in her loneliness, DiMaggio never walked away entirely. He remained loyal, arranging her funeral when she died years later. For Marilyn, love was always just out of reach, a promise that slipped through her fingers no matter how tightly she tried to hold on. Behind the glittering facade, Marilyn carried battles that few ever saw. She suffered from endometriosis, a painful condition that led to multiple miscarriages and robbed her of the children she longed for. Each loss deepened her despair, leaving wounds that fame and fortune could never heal. At the same time, she struggled with depression and anxiety, conditions only magnified by the crushing pressure of Hollywood. To cope, doctors prescribed barbiturates, stimulants, and sleeping pills, creating a dangerous cycle of dependency. On set, her constant lateness and erratic behavior made headlines, and the studios branded her difficult. But what many dismissed as diva behavior was often the result of exhaustion, illness, and medication. The irony was tragic. Hollywood demanded perfection, yet its relentless demands pushed her further into fragility. Still, Marilyn fought to keep going, clinging to her career and her image, even as the cracks beneath the surface grew deeper. And just as her personal demons were mounting, she became entangled with some of the most powerful men in America. By the early 1960s, Marilyn Monroe was no longer just a Hollywood starlet. She was brushing shoulders with America's most powerful men. Rumors swirled about her closeness to President John F. Kennedy, fueled by her now iconic serenade of Happy Birthday, Mr. President in 1962.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
The sultry performance at Madison Square Garden only intensified speculation that their relationship went far beyond the public eye. Whispers also tied her to Attorney General Robert Kennedy, painting a picture of a woman entangled in a dangerous web of politics and secrecy. For a star already under immense pressure, these alleged affairs added another layer of risk, connecting her to power struggles she could never control. Some believe Marilyn knew too much: political secrets, private details, information that could have shaken the White House. Whether fact or legend, those rumors have kept her story alive for decades, and as her ties to the Kennedys deepened, her own life began to spiral further into chaos, setting the stage for the shocking night that would change everything. On the night of August 4th, 1962, Marilyn Monroe's glittering life came to a sudden and tragic end. She was found in her Brentwood home, lying lifeless at just 36 years old. The official cause was listed as a probable overdose, but almost immediately questions began to swirl. Her housekeeper's timeline didn't add up. Doctors gave conflicting statements, and rumors tied her death to the Kennedys only fueled suspicion. Was it an accident, a cry for help, or something more sinister? Some believe she was silenced because she knew too much. Others claim the pressures of Hollywood and heartbreak finally consumed her. Even FBI and CIA files later revealed how closely she had been watched, adding layers of conspiracy that still spark debate today. What's certain is that Marilyn's death shocked the world, and instead of bringing her peace, it cemented her as a legend wrapped in mystery. But even in death, her story was far from over. Her image would be exploited, celebrated, and immortalized for generations to come. Even after her death, Marilyn Monroe refused to fade from the spotlight. Her face became one of the most reproduced images in history, immortalized by Andy Warhol's pop art and countless magazine covers. Yet her legacy has often been overshadowed by exploitation. The first issue of Playboy published nude photos from her early modeling years without her consent, and decades later, even her medical x-rays were sold at auction, with headlines speculating about plastic surgery. In death, Marilyn became a commodity as much as she was a legend. Her final resting place also carried controversy. Hugh Hefner purchased the crypt beside her, a decision many felt dishonored her memory. But over time, the world has begun to reframe her story, recognizing not just the dumb blonde persona, but the intelligent, complex woman beneath it. She remains an icon of beauty, vulnerability, and resilience, inspiring new generations who see her as more than just a symbol of glamour. Marilyn Monroe may be gone, but her shadow still lingers over Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe's life was a paradox, glamorous yet heartbreaking, adored by millions yet desperately lonely. She was both the creation of Hollywood and its victim, a woman who became larger than life while struggling to hold on to her own identity. Her tragic death left questions that may never be answered, fueling endless fascination and conspiracy. Was she undone by her own demons, by the pressures of fame, or by secrets she should never have carried? Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. What remains undeniable is her impact. She is still the face of an era, a reminder of both beauty and fragility. Drop a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more forgotten Hollywood tales.